127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is the founder of Long Haul Fitness. He is also a trainer at Destination Dallas, Texas. Today's guest is Nick Bagley. Nick, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
How's it going, man? You doing good?
I'm doing great, Nick. I really appreciate you taking some time to jump on the podcast and chop it up with me. I've got 4 questions that I kind of like to start all of the podcast conversations off with. I like to call them the conversational warm-up questions. So the first question, Nick, that I have for you is, how do you start your day? Do you have a specific routine or ritual you like to stick to on most mornings?
With the training schedule I have, almost all of my clients are in the morning. So I start at typically 5 or 6 a.m. So I'm not going to get up any earlier than 4 a.m. So my morning is pretty rushed usually. I like to get everything done the night before that I need to have with me for the day. And then I get up before and I'm out the door at 4:30. So as far as a routine, it's kind of just going into work. I'll hit the few clients I have. I'm in a show prep right now, so I'm a little under 10 weeks out. So cardio is put in there, and then got to get food in and all that kind of stuff. But mostly the mornings are just surrounded by clients and training the people that I have in person.
All right, awesome. The second question is a part of the warm-up questions, Nick. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, or word? And I kind of like to preface this with, obviously there's different seasons of life and there's all kinds of different things going on within those different seasons. So you can kind of take this however you want. Maybe it's a quote, mantra, word from a previous season of life. Maybe it's something currently. Again, however you kind of want to go with it. Favorite quote, mantra, or word?
So anyone who knows anything about Destination Dallas, it's the headquarters for GASP and Better Bodies. And GASP is one of the biggest bodybuilding clothing companies that there is. One of their main slogans or mottos is relentless, and that's kind of the best way that I can describe myself and the best word to kind of sum things up at the time. So my son is 8 months old. The business is just over a year old at this point. So there's a lot of new growth and stuff coming, and a lot of things that I want to accomplish more than just personal training. So it just requires me to be relentless in that pursuit. So I actually made, I was planning to wear one, forgot to put it on, but I made some long haul fitness shirts, and on the back says relentless in the pursuit. And that kind of can just go towards anything, that doesn't necessarily mean fitness. It's relentless in the pursuit of whatever you want, like whatever sets your heart on fire. As long as you are fulfilled and enjoying the life, and you're working hard towards something, I think that's all that matters.
Love it, man. All right. The third question under the warm up here, is there a book or podcast that has been especially impactful in your life?
Have you heard of Mind Pump?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mind Pump's been a big one for a little while. The big thing that I've taken away from them is more or less how to work with general population people, because I can speak to a bodybuilder. I can speak to someone who's like-minded like me, who knows that this is a 24/7 thing. But trying to bridge that gap between someone who's not as serious and someone like myself who is very determined and serious, and I make no excuses for anything that I'm trying to do. Trying to bridge that gap between the 100% person like myself, and then the person who's just trying to make a subtle life change. So those guys are really good at that. I think they've really helped me change some of my more dogmatic views on training from when I was younger. And then I don't know if I can consider it a podcast, but one of the people that has been very influential on me, he has a podcast, but I've learned a lot more from him in other aspects, is Jordan Shallow, the muscle doc. So I took his certification, took his certification just a few months ago and passed it, and really enjoyed it. And actually then about a month after that was done, got to train with him while he was visiting in Dallas, and just his wealth of knowledge with whether it's on like a YouTube video or a podcast or anything like that. He's been super influential in changing how I look at training, how I approach clients, how I approach different aspects of things. So I would say those two things, people, whatever you want to call it, are the most influential.
Now, I want to just kind of touch on, because you mentioned with Mind Pump, kind of like how they've kind of helped you bridge that gap between maybe like the bodybuilding or maybe the more intense athlete side of training and Gen Pop, right? So, I own a gym. I'm a trainer, and I know for me, like it's sometimes for me, it's if not all the time, it's hard for me to relate with Gen Pop people because I also compete in bodybuilding. I've never like been out of shape or anything, and
Sure.
played sports growing up. So what's maybe a couple things that just maybe come to mind that you've learned through Mind Pump or just through experience in terms of bridging that gap between the athlete and the Gen Pop, just not only to help myself, but maybe some of the other listeners that are trainers, coaches, that they can maybe glean off of what you've learned, Nick?
There would be two aspects to that. So one is around training, the other is around nutrition. So nutrition, when it comes to Gen Pop, is the thing where we are going to run into the most problems. Most Gen Pop people, when they pay for something, they will show up. We have those people who don't. But luckily, so far, those have been few and far between for me. They'll show up and they'll do the work and they'll put in the effort, but it's the other 23 hours of the day that they're dropping the ball. So learning to give them recommendations of like, okay, let's try to hit X amount of protein and get 2 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit in a day. If you can do that, great. Everything else, don't worry about it. Because it's one of those things where if we start talking about taking away things from people that aren't ready to have those things taken away, they're going to be like, no, I want to keep this. I need it close to me. I need to have it. Especially if they're dealing with body image issues or a poor relationship with food and things like that. So versus having that, okay, you can't have this, you can't have that. Let's go, okay, eat how you want, but I need you to hit this amount of protein. I need you to hit 2 servings of vegetables a day, and I need you to eat 2 servings of fruit a day while drinking a gallon of water. Try and fit other stuff in there while you're hitting all 4 of those things, and tell me if you have a ton of room for extra crap. I mean, most people can still shovel some shit into their face, but typically it's going to make it a little bit more difficult for them to reach for that junk because they will notice that they're more satisfied and things like that. And then as far as training, the biggest thing that you have to get across with clients is you have to stick to a program. And a lot of people expect when they work with a trainer that every time they show up, it's going to be a new workout, something new and exciting. And they're looking for new because they're expecting stimulation. And it's like, that's not really how this works. Like we can make some progress there, but it's going to be very short-term progress. And then when we hit a plateau, I don't know what to do. So trying to get across to people that we don't need to program hop. Like every week for at least a short period of time needs to be the same so that we can see progress across the sessions. While movement patterns could potentially be similar week to week, if we're doing things in a different order, in a different fashion, in a slightly different manner, every single session, you're never really fully getting the benefits of the progressive overload for one. And then 2, the skill acquisition, because if we're talking about gen population people, skill acquisition is going to be the number one thing that's going to stop us from being able to move forward. Like perfect example of that is one thing that Jordan Shallow is really big on is if you can't stand on 1 foot, you shouldn't be squatting on 2, right? So if we can't do a split squat, why would we go to a bilateral loaded squat where we can put a lot of weight on you? So it's trying to communicate to people that, hey, look, we have to do these movements in order to set a foundation for the things that we're going to do later down the road. If you can tackle these things here and we can move along quickly, then that's perfectly fine. We can move along quickly. So like, again, gen population example, I have a client that like, we still do split squats, but she's been able to advance all the way to a front squat. And then I have another client who we started split squats with bilateral dowels, And we just recently took one away. We've been working together for 6 months. So like there's different levels of like how people acquire skills, how people feel their bodies, different things like that. So it all has to be tailored to the person. And a lot of times trainers want to get caught up in that, like, I got to keep this person occupied. I got to keep this person thinking that I'm doing something. It's like, no, no, no. They need to understand what the plan here is. They need to understand why we are doing this. We're not just doing this for fun. We're not just doing this because I can't think up other exercises. This is what you need in order for us to move you forward. And we got to drill this until you're perfect. So I would say those are the two biggest things that they've kind of helped me get a little better about, a little bit more flexible about with people who are just trying to make a subtle lifestyle change.
Excellent. So to wrap up the warm-up questions, Nick, what is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Get out of North Carolina sooner. I moved to Texas about 2 years ago, and it's been the best decision that I ever made as far as everything. I mean, I have my son now, got his mom here supporting me and helping me. Got a great crew here at Destination Dallas. I'm around some of the best athletes on the planet on a regular basis. I get to speak with legends in the sport of bodybuilding almost daily. So it's what I've always wanted since I was like 18, but I can't say that I could actually do that. Go back, like if I had the opportunity to go tell myself move sooner, I'm not sure that I would, because everything leads up to what it's supposed to lead up to. I learned what I needed to learn where I was, when I was, and that's all I can do. I think if I had gotten the opportunity any sooner than I did, then I probably would have screwed it up. So everything happens when it's supposed to.
Absolutely, man. Couldn't agree more with that statement. All right. So, Nick, we're going to kind of transition into your backstory. I love getting the backstories of my guests on the podcast, because who we are today, in large part is we can find that in the backstory of our lives. So if you don't mind sharing, you just mentioned North Carolina. I'm assuming that's probably where you grew up and where you're from, but just if you don't mind sharing with myself and the 127 Fit podcast listeners, where did you grow up? What did those younger years look like? Any siblings? Were you involved in sports? Just kind of paint that picture for us, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So the majority of my younger life was in North Carolina. Like you said, I was in the Raleigh area. I did live in Florida for 4 years during that middle school age and the first semester of high school. So after those 4 years, we moved back to North Carolina. My dad worked for an energy company, so we got moved around a few times while I was still living at home. After high school, I stayed in North Carolina, but I just went like an hour and a half away from home. It was just far enough to kind of get away from the parents, but still close enough to where kind of comfortable, didn't have to worry too much. I went to the University of North Carolina at Greensboro for school. And after the 5 years it took me to graduate, I stayed for another 3. So I was in Greensboro for 8 years. Childhood, man, sports was not my thing. I still say that I had the coordination of a newborn baby deer. Don't throw anything at me because it's going to hit me in the face. So I was more into like playing video games, playing outside with my friends, like just little things like that, just normal kid stuff. I wasn't really, I'm just not good at sports. Never really been that coordinated. I like competition now that I'm older and stuff, but like I know what my skills are, and catching or throwing a ball is not one of them. But high school is where, like before high school, like everything's just kind of awkward. You're just, you don't know what you're doing. You're trying to figure out who you are and stuff like that. So anything before high school, I don't know that's super relevant to like where I am now, but high school is where fitness started for me. So, I was in JROTC, so the ROTC program in high school. We were the nerds wearing the uniforms around campus and stuff every week. And I got into the fitness program where they would go and compete against other schools. So like we would do the physical fitness test for the Army, run like 5Ks, 10Ks, obstacle courses, just all these different things. And we would compete against other schools. And when I first found out about this as a freshman in high school, one of the big draws to it was the kids who did the Raider team, is what it was called, got to wear the camo uniforms. Nobody else got to wear the camo uniforms at that time. So it was like a big deal, you know? And like, I mean, if you're going to be an ROTC, you want to be like the dude who gets to wear the cool shit. So I wanted to be able to wear the camo. So I started going to the practices and stuff. And as a freshman, I would say I was a part of the Raider team, but I would like make up excuses about not going all the time because I hated running, and I still hate running. Um, but over time, like I started to make friends with the guys that were like on the team as well. So it was more like social hour. I got to go hang out, and then I started to enjoy the workouts and stuff more and more. And then just kept climbing with that for a while. And some of the guys that were in or on the Raider team that I was closer with were a bit bigger than me in high school, and they were working out, lifting weights, and that's where things started to transition there. And I was always pretty small. I think when I got to college, I was like 160, 170 pounds, and I'm 6'1". So I was pretty lanky. I remember telling my mom a few months before going to college that I was tired of being the small kid, and I didn't I didn't want to be the small kid anymore. So we went and bought BSN True Mass because that's what's going to put weight on. So we went and bought a weight gainer for me, and it was just kind of all uphill from there. You know, I started working out at the college rec center. One of the guys that lived in my hall competed as a power lifter. So he kind of already had an idea of how to program, and he started like working on some exercises for me. And we became good friends, started lifting and things like that. Just started slowly meeting more and more people that were into fitness. And then there was a big shift in college where I got jumped one night. And it was like pretty much from there, I stopped the partying, the drinking, like all that. I was in a fraternity in college, and that's what ended up pushing me into kinesiology because I went for computer science to begin with. But a lot of the guys were in the kin program, and I moved over to that. But after getting jumped while blackout drunk, it was kind of like, okay, I think I'm good there. So that's where I would say like halfway through college that the fitness really started to become like everything.
So is there anything, just kind of from the younger years before we kind of transition into college and beyond, is there anything looking back, I know you kind of mentioned high school and the importance of being in the, some of the activities you're involved with and stuff like that. But, just in terms of like maybe, a certain situation or instance, or, maybe it's a family member, a friend, is there anything looking back on those years that you feel like was really impactful in terms of altering the direction maybe of your life? Maybe it was a teacher or a coach or what have you that really maybe spoke into your life or brought some mentorship or not?
Not that I can think of like a single specific time. Like I said, it was a lot more of like the people I was hanging out with were into fitness, and I was the small kid of the group. So I just started kind of going with them. My mom, forever when I was younger, before I really started to get into fitness, would come into my room and be like, "Hey, do you want to go to the gym?" Like my mom's always worked out and things like that. So she was always trying to get me to go and things like that. And I think it was just kind of that spark of, this is who I'm hanging out with now. And this is, this, I don't know if you want to call it, it makes me cool, or I'm making friends because I started doing this, or whatever you want to call it. But it filled kind of a hole for me. And I just started going with my buddies that I was hanging out with. So it was just another aspect of, social life, really.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a matter of like the people I wanted to hang around with were doing that kind of stuff as well.
Cool. What did the academics in high school and in college look like for you? Were you pretty studious, or did you just kind of do it because you had to?
I mean, I never did bad in school, but I would never say I was an amazing student. I'm not good at like reading a book and then being able to take that and just know what it means. I'm much more of a hands-on person, and as you know, like high school and college, like unless you're in a lab, you're getting spoken to. You're going home and you're reading a book, or you're reading something on the computer, or you're researching for some stupid paper that you don't give a shit about. Like it's never really you don't really get a lot of hands-on experience, So um, I blanked on the question. What was it again? Sorry.
No, we're just no, you're fine. You're good. We're just talking about just kind of like the
Well, what kind of student I was, right?
yeah, the student stuff. Yeah,
So like high school, like I never really had an issue. I was like an A B student. In college. There was a few classes that I struggled with, but it was never anything super crazy. I mean, I kind of just got by. I think I had like a 3.4 when I graduated, so like decent, but like I didn't really care that much. Um, I just don't care for that style of learning. Um, just looking at a book and trying to regurgitate information. Like I've got to do it and help somebody with it and things like that so I can really solidify it and learn it and know it.
for sure. So did you find yourself once you kind of got into the kinesiology side of things and you were working out, did that kind of help you, in terms of like having more of an interest in studying and learning? Because I know for me personally, you basically just go, for me, I just went through the motions in high school and most of college, even though I was studying exercise science, but it's just like, I'm much more, I think, kind of like what you talked about, like, an experiential learner. It's like, okay, I'd rather not take this test. I'd actually rather go into the gym and like,
Yeah.
put somebody through a workout routine and something like that. So did you find once you kind of like had the own personal working out thing going and then you stepped into kind of the kinesiology studies, did that kind of give you a little bit more of a passion to learn?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely helped out, but I think the biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? The biggest like distance, or that's the only word I can think of for it right now. The biggest difference between like school education and then what I enjoy with fitness is nobody in academia gives a shit about bodybuilding. So like they're not teaching you anything that you're going to learn in the bodybuilding community. Um, so like I would pick things up here and there that like I could apply to my training and stuff, but with kinesiology in like a basic bachelor's degree program, it's like they're not going to get that far into the stuff. And like, yeah, like in biomechanics, like I could learn some things in there, like about just setting up properly for different exercises and things like that to apply force better. But like for the most part, none of it was really applied to what I enjoyed. So a lot of my studying came from like working with coaches, working with people in the bodybuilding world, or reading articles and listening to podcasts. Wasn't really that big in my world at the time in college, but watching YouTube videos and like just talking to different people about training and things like that, and talking to these people that I was meeting as I got more and more into the bodybuilding world. Like, so it was like I kind of showed up to school. I would pay attention as much as I needed to in order to pass, and then like pick up the little pieces here and there that I could fit into what I wanted to do. But there was never really like much encouragement into like bodybuilding. Nobody ever saw that there is money in bodybuilding, which like, I mean, I can't blame them, in Greensboro, North Carolina, like bodybuilding has its niche and has its place, but like, it's not like here, man. I mean, I could name drop forever on here if I wanted to about who the people I am around now, but like no one can see this kind of stuff. So it comes down to that thing of like, not letting people's short-sighted visions of your long-term goals like get in the way of what you're trying to do. So I showed up, I studied what I needed to, I passed the exams, but like I only really paid attention to and applied the stuff that I really cared about that would apply to me and my stuff, um, and I think that's what you kind of have to do with college, because they're just going to force some stuff down your throat. I mean, at the end of the day, a kinesiology degree is really just an expensive personal training certification. I could have been doing this stuff at 18, but I mean, again, like I wouldn't have found it without going to college, because of the people I was around and the environment I was in and things like that. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that college and the way they teach things is really the best way to go about it. At least, definitely not for me, So the college experience, I mean, it is what it is. It was more of just like getting my feet under me as a person, more than like it really teaching me how to train or train people or different things like that,
Yep, I couldn't agree more for sure, man. So I want to kind of move into just the bodybuilding stuff, because that's a big part of your life. It's a big part of my life. So when did you? I'm assuming that you kind of grew up in the magazine era and stuff like that, kind of pre social media. So when did you? I know you mentioned you had some person that was powerlifting and stuff like that, but when did you really kind of like notice bodybuilding, and bodybuilding kind of caught your eye? And then just kind of talk about that transition into like, hey, this is something that I want to pursue and do in my life and with my life.
It's funny because like I've thought about this before, and I honestly can't fully answer that question because I don't know where it came from. Because like yes, I was in the magazine era and like social media was kind of just starting to pick up, but like nobody really knew what social media was at that time and like what to post. So like yeah, you would see some shirtless dudes that look pretty good on social media, but like you didn't see too much. But somewhere along the way, when I was working out with my buddy, he was doing the powerlifting stuff, and I was like, it'd probably be good for me if I had something that I could like work towards and have a competition. And like for a second, we looked at powerlifting, and I've never been a strong person. And when I looked at like the weight class and the records for my weight class, it was like that's unreasonable. Like that's never going to happen. So I don't know where I had heard of men's physique, to be completely honest, but I told Tristan, the guy that I was working out with, I was just like, maybe I should try men's physique. And then not too long after that, he and I started going to a workout anytime in the area. And just so happened that there was a professional bodybuilder that worked out there who was pretty well known in the area. And he ended up getting me in contact with my first coach, which we won't go into him because that's not what I want to talk about on here. But it wasn't he wasn't a great person. We'll just leave it at that. And he took me into my first show, and while the experience with him was not amazing, for whatever reason, I didn't look great. I was skinny. I was just like a string bean, like I still wasn't lean enough, but I didn't have enough muscle to be lean enough. But like once I got out there and did it, it was like, I love this. So I knew that the person that I was working with at the time was not going to be able to help me anymore because I didn't like the way he had treated me. I didn't like how anything was handled. Come to find out that like everything he gave me was all cookie cutter and he'd given to 19 other people, like just that kind of experience. So not long after that, I got introduced to the coach that I worked with for the bulk of my bodybuilding career. Um, I say that like I've been doing this for a long time, but for the bulk of my early bodybuilding career, he was my coach, and he's like family. Love that guy to death. So we worked together for a long time and put on some good size and things like that. And it was just the aspect of bettering myself and being able to have the ability to change what I look like and how strong I am. And it gave me this confidence that I didn't necessarily have before. So it's just a matter of like, once I found that competitive aspect, it was like, I felt like I found another piece of myself.
Love it, man. So what is kind of like, let's just talk about before we get like into more of the nuts and bolts, the training philosophy and nutrition, all that. And you just alluded to earlier, mentioned earlier that you're currently in prep. So what has kind of the evolution of your bodybuilding looked like? You just mentioned physique. Are you competing now like in classic physique? Just talk about and break down that evolution of kind of like the beginning where you started with bodybuilding and then where you're at currently, and then what you're kind of actually in prep for right now.
Sure. So yeah, that first show was a men's physique show. I knew I was going to be small, so it was like I don't want to get on stage in a bikini and show my legs off if I'm already going to be small. So between that first show and the second show was about 2 years. When I finally got linked up with that next coach, we were still planning on going men's physique. And then at some point, I kind of asked him, I was like, well, what do you think about going into bodybuilding? Because my family genetically has big legs. And as soon as I started putting some effort into training my legs, they took off. And I remember him actually, he's told me this story before where it was like, when I told him that I had family had big legs and this and that, he was like, all right, whatever, kid. And then came back to him a few months later and he saw me. He was like, dude, okay, we might have something here. So, not to say that I have amazing genetics by any means, because I'm around people who have amazing genetics, and I'm I'm average at best. Um, but so from there, classic physique wasn't a thing at the time. So classic physique's still just a couple years old, right? So I went into bodybuilding, and I did all the next shows were all bodybuilding. I was in the light heavyweight class. I still wasn't big enough. I was coming in at my first one was like 187, and the next three were 193, but all progressively better. And then the last show I did was in 2018 in North Carolina. I did classic physique in that one, and that was the best showing I've had so far. The plan is to still do classic physique now. I still have a lot of room to fill out the class. Being tall, to really be competitive in open bodybuilding, I would have to be ridiculously big. And especially now with having a son, I don't necessarily want to do the things that I'd have to do in order to get myself to over 300 pounds. I enjoy the competitive aspect of this, but I know what the limitations of my body and where I'm willing to push myself to. So classic is more than enough for me. I enjoy how it looks. I'm able to still get pretty decently big without the extra issues, So I really enjoy classic and enjoy the posing and all that kind of stuff. So it's still a solid outlet. It's not, it's the same kind of training like open bodybuilding would be. It's all the same stuff. So that's kind of how that has transitioned over the years. It started with men's physique. I only did one like that, and that was 2013. I think 2013 was the first one that I did. That was men's physique. All the rest were open bodybuilding, and then 2018 was classic.
So what are you currently in prep for?
The Labrada Classic is August 7th in the Woodlands, Texas, and then the Johnny Jackson Classic is in Dallas on August 28th.
Okay.
So I'm in prep for both of those. And you spoke about sponsors. Labrada Pro Series is who I'm sponsored by, and I figured if I'm going to be sponsored by the Labrada Nutrition, I should probably do their show. Probably be a good look on me. But I've got a little under 10 weeks and a little under 13 weeks left for those two shows, respectively.
Awesome. So what's kind of like your long-term goal in regards to bodybuilding? Are you pursuing some sort of pro status, or is it more at this point, now that you kind of have your own training business, is it more just to kind of build that brand and kind of show people, hey, I practice what I preach?
Yeah, I would say it's not necessarily with the intent of, hey, I practice what I preach, but it's certainly part of it. It's good to show people hey, I work hard, I do this stuff regardless of what may be going on in my life. So it's not I'm not just doing it to try and get more clients and things like that. I legitimately enjoy the aspect of pushing myself. So as far as goals with bodybuilding, I don't really have any. I just enjoy pushing myself. I enjoy getting crazy lean. I enjoy getting crazy big in the off season. It's just the whole aspect of it of manipulating your body and stuff is just fun to me. As weird as that sounds, people are going to think I'm crazy, but it's just fun to be able to push myself to those points of can I do another rep? Can I eat less food? Can I be hungrier? Are these things that I can physically do? Yes, they are. And what benefit can I get that on the other side? Anytime that I do a show like this, everything just kind of falls in place. Everything starts to move like a well-oiled machine because it has to. There's no other choice. So bodybuilding and the pursuit of trying to better myself for stage has bettered me as a person in general. So just the pursuit of like competing and trying to better myself is really all I care about. If a pro card happens, a pro card happens. But I'm not one of those people that's like hashtag pro card chasing. Like I'm not doing that. Like I don't care. Your pro status does not validate who I am as a person. And again, we touched on genetics and things like that. Like I'm not a genetic freak. I know what my limits are. I know what I'm willing to do, and I know what I'm not willing to do. So as far as like really trying to push things, I don't care. I want to be able to train people who want to be at that high level, right? So I know what my limitations are as an athlete, but I know my limitations as a coach are unlimited. With the right people, the right education, the continuing to make myself better, learning more and things like that. I know what my capabilities are as far as being a coach, and I know what my goals are with that. But I'm going to keep that one close to the chest.
Yep. So just kind of speaking to some younger listeners or people that are just thinking about competing for the first time or have competed just minimally, because you kind of mentioned about the first coach that you had, it wasn't a very good experience. And, the more I watch YouTube videos and listen to podcasts and listen to, high level bodybuilders, there's a lot of that, right? Their first coach was, giving them the cookie cutter stuff, and it was a pretty bad experience. I hear that more often than not. So what would you say to some people thinking about getting into bodybuilding or people that are just getting in terms of maybe, hey, get a coach, hey, try the first show on your own? Is there any advice, any words of wisdom that you would give to younger people or people fresh in the bodybuilding scene, Nick?
Well, with social media these days, it's a lot easier to research people. Coaches tend to put out a lot of pictures of their athletes, of their transformations and things like that. You can contact that person with the click of a button. But at the same time, you can also click on the people who they post and send them a message and go, hey, what's your experience been with this person? How long have you been with them? What kind of results did you get? Go back to old people that they haven't posted in a long time that maybe they're not working with now. See who you can speak to about this person. See what their results are. Are their results that they're getting something that you want? Are they speaking about the type of training that you want to do? Are they speaking about nutrition the way that you think it should be done, or the way that you connect with? And then the other thing is like, work with somebody that you connect with, right? So like if I'd continued to force myself to work with that first coach just because he was an influence in the area, I never would have been able to do anything because I would have hated it. Like I don't like you as a person. We don't connect. So like I'm just going to end up hating this, So I've been working with Chris Tuttle with nutrition for the last 2 years, and that dude's like my best friend now. So the relationship aspect of coaching is a part that's overlooked a lot. I don't care how intelligent the trainer or coach is. If you can't get along with them and it just doesn't mesh, it's like vinegar and water. Like it's not going to work. So don't just go to someone just because they're intelligent. Do you like the information they're putting out? Most of these coaches will do like question and answers these days. Most of them will go on and write something out that helps them like get out something that they're trying to communicate to you. So read those messages. Are they speaking to the way that you want to be spoken to? Are they being really scientific? Is that what you like? Do you not like the scientific stuff? Does that freak you out? Does it go over your head? So like research these people. Don't just like click on the first guy because he looks jacked. Like do some research. And as far as like getting a coach versus not getting a coach, I would 100% say if you're going to step on stage, don't do it without a coach. Because the number of people that I've seen screw themselves up over the years, especially females, is astronomical. So do your research and get a coach for sure. And the other thing that I just want to touch on with this, if you decide that you want to compete, you need to go into this with the understanding of what it is you're about to undertake. Okay. This isn't a weight loss competition. This isn't a transformation competition. This isn't how fit are you competition. This isn't how much can you lift competition. This is bodybuilding. And this is brutal. Okay. And if it's not, you're doing it wrong. Okay. So if you don't have the understanding that this is going to be one of the hardest things you've ever done in your life, then you're not ready, because you're not going to put into the effort that is required for something that is this difficult. If you decide that that is okay, and then that is the route that you want to go down, and that you accept the responsibility of the pressure and difficulty of the task, shut up about how hard it is. I don't want to hear it. I don't care that you have to do an hour cardio. I don't care that you're tired. I don't care that you're hungry. I don't care that you have no strength. I don't care. Shut up and do it. It's your choice. No one is forcing you to do this. There's no gun to your head. Your family doesn't, most people's families don't rely on bodybuilding. So if it is a choice you have made, stick by it and shut up.
There you go. Straight to the point, man. It's good stuff. All right. So I want to get into kind of like the training side of things. You're a trainer, you're a coach. Now, going back to college, I know you said you studied kinesiology. Did you kind of know at some point you wanted to be a trainer or a coach, or what was your mindset when you were in college studying the kinesiology? And then at what point did you decide to become a trainer coach, and what did those earlier years look like in that profession?
Yeah, so just a quick step back before we get to that. So like when I first went to college, the plan was not fitness at all. So like I said, when I went to college, I was studying computer science because I thought maybe I would be able to make video games with that, but I was really wrong. I just got to hang out with nerds who wore cattails all day. And that's not a joke. They actually wore cattails. The plan was to actually be a Marine officer. So I was in something called the PLC program, the platoon leaders course. And basically it's basic training for officer candidates. You go to OCS, which is in Virginia. And it's basic training. So between freshman and sophomore, you go for 6 weeks. Between junior and senior year, you go for the second 6 weeks. Then when you're done with that, you go on to your other training schools and things like that and become a Marine second lieutenant. So I was in the PLC program, started getting into bodybuilding, was really like leaning into lifting and stuff and really neglecting like the running and body weight movements and things like that, just thinking that I was strong enough to get through all this stuff. So I went to training, was there for 4 weeks of hell when it was 6 weeks. In that fourth week, I ended up with 4 stress fractures to the point where I couldn't move my legs anymore. So they put me in a rack for a week until I finally got discharged, came back. And that's when I like started talking to fraternity brothers who were like in kinesiology and all these things. Like I ended up sticking with computer science for a full year. Hated every second of it, got multiple D's, like didn't know what I was doing. Switched to kinesiology in that sophomore or that second year. So basically I became a freshman again. And then pretty much from there, it was like, okay, I guess I'm going to be a personal trainer. And then once I started competing and stuff, it was like, okay, online coaching had just started to become a thing. And like, I kind of figured like, okay, that's where I will end up going, because like, I'm not a clinical setting person. Like half the time when somebody says a big word, I have to like pause, think about what the word means, think about it in my head. And then I'm like, okay, I understand what you're saying now. So like me trying to force myself into a clinical setting would have been rough. So there was a lot of days of like not knowing what I wanted to do with it, and I think that until recently, I still didn't know what I wanted to do with it, and I don't know what it looks like going forward, but it was kind of always like I knew training was going to be part of something I would be doing for sure. During college, I was working a job for a supplement company. And at that time, it was looking like I was going to end up like owning a store and doing the franchise thing and different things like that. And it just, the training thing kind of slowly started to morph into, okay, I'm going to own a store, and like I have this kinesiology degree, but I guess I'm not going to do anything with it. And then through a series of events, I ended up not working there anymore and got out of the fitness industry for a long time. Was still like training and doing competitions and things like that, but my work was not from fitness. I just got really burnt out from it in the supplement store. And then once I decided to move to Texas, that when it was like full bore into personal training from there.
So let's talk about that, because I know some of your recent posts on your Instagram. I saw some content in regards to kind of like going all in. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that's a very important mindset in life if you want to reach your full potential and be quote unquote successful. So let's talk about you going from North Carolina to Texas, because obviously you're working at one of the best gyms in the United States, if not the world. And you've kind of already mentioned some of the athletes that you get to be around, the IFBB pros and things like that. So what was kind of the impetus for you to go from North Carolina and to move to Texas, and just unpack that? Because I mean, I came across you on YouTube, and then started following you on Instagram. It's like not everybody has the opportunity or makes the opportunity to work at a gym like Destination Dallas. So just talk about that. Talk about the mindset. Talk about the impetus. Just talk about all the things in terms of how you ended up where you're at present day.
Sure. So again, a little bit step back from it. So like the January of 2019, it was the first week of January 2019. My girlfriend at the time and I were not doing great. Like things were kind of rocky back and forth. We've been living together almost 2 years. I had picked up a bouncing job on the side, like to make some extra money, to save some stuff and whatnot. And I was driving to the bouncing gig that night and got in a car accident. So this guy pulled out. I was driving to work. I'm in the right-hand lane. This guy pulled out from a shopping center on the right-hand side, but pulled into the left lane. When he pulled into the left lane, he now took a right-hand turn, trying to take a right-hand turn like down another street, and we T-boned. So I basically T-boned him, but it was his fault. When that happened, I tore my labrum in my shoulder. And then the very next day, her and I broke up. So it was like this whole negative lead up to this bad car accident that put me out of training, that put me out of like a lot of things. And then we break up. So like I was going through this like mental phase of like, I got to figure out who I am again. So I had already planned to come to Texas to see one of my best friends, because we both have birthdays in January. So we wanted to like, he had moved out here for his girlfriend and I'd never been out here. So we made a plan to like me come visit and we go have a good time, whatever. And it just kind of lined up that me and Lexi broke up not long before that, and flew out here, and then, fell in love with the area. You know, it was a gorgeous city. And I can remember being at one of the bars we went to and going out on the balcony and seeing the city and just feeling the vibes of Texas and whatnot. And like something about it was just right. So when I got back home, like I was still kind of going through this crisis, like trying to figure out who I am and what the plans were and what going forward was, because I was, at the time, I worked for a beer distributor and I was selling beer to convenience stores, and I was making good money. I didn't have to work around people all day. Like I literally just went to convenience stores. I would tell the people that I was selling to what I was sending them, and that was pretty much it. My boss would show up every once in a while. I'd have to go to the office every once in a while. So like, as far as the job's concerned, it was a great job, but I fucking hated it, man. I hated it. And I knew I wanted to get out of there, and I'd been telling my ex for a long time I wanted to get out of there. And I had spoken about moving and all those kinds of things. So my mom and dad and my brother and his family are all in Florida. So it was like one day I decided like, okay, I guess I'm moving to Florida. And then just kind of kept thinking about it. And I was like, Florida just doesn't seem right. So I texted my buddy and I was like, dude, I'm moving to Texas. And there had been a few times before where I was like, hey, I'm moving, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And like everything would fall through and it would never happen. And then I texted him one day in July and was like, hey man, I'm flying out. I'm coming to find an apartment. He's like, oh shit, really? It's like, yeah, dude, I'll see you this weekend. So came out, locked down an apartment, was in contact with another owner of a supplement store of like the same company that I was working for. And the plan was to start working there when I moved out here, but he was trying to pull some shady stuff over my eyes, and tried to basically put the store off on me when it was crashing. So luckily I didn't do that. So when I actually moved to Texas, I didn't have a job. I managed to get them to like look at my tax statements from the year before or something like that. And that's how I got into the apartment, because I had no income. I was living off savings. There was an LA Fitness right down the street from where I was working. So it was like, I guess I'm going to LA Fitness. So got a job at LA Fitness. And for anyone who wants to be a trainer or is thinking about being a trainer or looking for a new place to train, don't do it at LA Fitness. I had probably between 30 and 40 clients, and the most my pay ever was $400. Yeah, so like they pay terrible. And the people that I was working with were just scum, just like quit barking. Just like salesy scumbags, and like the things that they would say about female members that would come in, it was just like I couldn't stand it. So because that job wasn't paying the bills, I managed to find a bouncing job here. Started working the door at a club here, make some decent money there. And one of the other bouncers was working at Equinox. And Equinox, for anyone who doesn't know, is a gym that caters to high-end rich people. And Dallas has plenty of them. So he was like, hey, just put in an application. I think they're looking for some people. So I did, got the job at Equinox. I was driving, it was a 30-minute commute every day. So I would drive from here to there, training clients and all that kind of stuff. At the time, at LA Fitness, I actually met my son's mom. And around January of 2020, we found out we were pregnant. And it started to become like, holy shit, I got to figure out what to do with work here. Because with the job there, it was like, because my commute was decently far enough away, it was hard for me to get away from being at Equinox. So like I would have my people in the morning, and then I would have a gap, and usually that gap would be when I would work out, and then there would be another awkward gap. Whereas like I don't really have enough time to go home, so I guess I'm going to stay here, and then I'll train those people, and then I'll go home. So like the schedule was all over the place, and this and that, and just worried about being able to be a good dad and be home and support his mom and all that kind of stuff. And then the pandemic happened. So everything got shut down. We were supposed to be in for 2 weeks, whatever. Equinox, it turned out to be a huge blessing because they paid us through the entire pandemic.
Wow.
They paid us a percentage. It wasn't 100% of what we were making, but it says lost connection to server. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
Okay. So they continued to pay us through that whole time, and then once things finally opened back up, we go back to the gym. A lot of people weren't ready to come back, so it was a lot of like, all right, what does this look like? How do we do this? Yada yada. And then as people started to come back, they wanted us to start pushing sales. And as far as myself and my style of selling is, I kind of don't, to be completely honest, because there's nothing worse than someone trying to force something on you that you're not looking for. So I've been in sales, like whether it's fitness or whatever, like I've been in sales for the majority of my working career. So I can appreciate good sales, and I loathe terrible ones. So I understand what it's like to be in that customer's shoes. So everything that I did at Equinox was organic. So when I first got there, I surpassed people who had already been there for almost so they give you 6 months to go full time. You can have longer than that, but the goal is to be full time in 6 months. I passed people in 2 months that had already been there for 4, with doing my organic style. Like I was blowing these people out of the water, and I was a few sessions shy of going full time around 5 months. Then pandemic, all gone, right? So Um, Obviously, I had been doing the job. Like I was doing well. Didn't have a problem getting clients. Didn't have a problem selling, things like that. But like I'm not a pushy person. So when we get back from quarantine and we're able to go back to work and things like that, obviously Equinox has been hemorrhaging money, paying us, which is amazing. But now they're having to scramble because they need to start making money again. So they're wanting us to really push stuff. And the problem is the people that we had to push were people who basically work there because they've been there that long, and that's how much time they spend at the gym. People who were already with other trainers who had been with those trainers for a long period of time, and that was it. So I had a handful of people that I had like maybe 3 clients who were comfortable with coming back. And so I would train those people here and there. And then the main manager at the time just kind of got it in her head that I wasn't trying anymore. And she just started to find every way to make my life hell. So every day it was a new meeting that we had to go over. It was a new call we had to go over. It was another thing that she wanted to touch on. It was this, it was that, to the point where like I told her like, leave me alone, just stop, just quit. And then she pushed into it harder. So then I had to go to other managers and be like, hey, look, this is what's happening, and I'm about to snap. So they sit her down, they tell her to stop and lay off. She pushes even harder. So she keeps pushing to the point where I'm like, I'm done with this. Like, you're just making an issue that there is not one. And just assuming that I don't care anymore. And I can't work in this environment. And you want to keep pushing this when you're being told to lay off me. So I eventually escalated it above like any of the managers that were in the store because nothing was being done. And by the time I finally got to sit down with him, like my mind was kind of already made. And when I first moved to Texas, I started working out at Destination Dallas at the original location. So I was training myself there, not clients. And when I started going there, I kind of always had this draw of like, this is where I eventually want to be. Like, these are the kind of people I want to be around. This is like the environment I want to be in. But just moved here. I'm not ready to go independent. Like, it's just not the time. So that idea started to pop in my head. And once I finished that meeting with him, and it was kind of apparent that like nothing was going to be done immediately, and that they kind of knew that this was an issue, and it has been an issue for a long time, because I wasn't the first to have this issue and to quit because of that same manager. It just became very apparent that it was no longer suiting me to be at that job. So I put in my notice, went to Destination and said, hey, I want to be a trainer here. They said, sweet. I met the owner. He owns GASP and Better Bodies and Destination. We sat down. He seemed to like me, so they brought me on. And it's just been uphill since then. You know, I've been there almost a year. I think next month is a year. Next month or the month after will have been a year, and it's been like a godsend. I mean, everything that's been given to me since I moved there has been absolutely incredible. I moved to that location with no promise of pay, only the promise of paying to be at the gym, no promise of getting clients. And that was 3 months before my son was born. So pretty scary time, you know, because like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay bills. Like, Christine's counting on me, things like that. My son's counting on me. And from that moment, it's just been taken off ever since. So I really have to thank her for a lot of reasons, because she supported me in that and was like, I'll support you regardless of what you want to do. Like, you will figure it out. I know you will. So she was a big influence in driving me to actually pull the trigger and go independent. And I mean, it's been the best thing ever. I mean, I don't have to deal with anyone else anymore. I don't have employees. I don't have a boss. Like, I am my boss. So that's a whole different ball game there. But as far as like my life and my stress and just everything, it has gotten exponentially better because of the decision to make that jump from a corporate location into an independent location.
Love it, man. So let's talk about long haul fitness. I saw like a little tagline for that was coaching people to make fitness last a lifetime. So obviously you're a bodybuilder, and we've kind of touched on that. And I want to talk about the environment at Destination Dallas here before we wrap up the conversation. But let's just touch on long haul fitness and, this mindset of coaching people to make fitness last a lifetime. Where did that all come to be? And then just kind of what is your long-term vision or goal with long haul fitness, Nick?
So long haul fitness kind of just came out of the idea of there's so many people who, I'm going to talk about the bodybuilding community because like that's where my end goal is. Like I have a lot of general population people, but I want to work with like 100% competitors at some point, but it takes time to get there. So, in the bodybuilding world, what you see a lot of times is that flash in the pan mentality, right? Where these people come in gung ho and it takes them longer than they expect. It's harder than they expect. And next thing you know, they're burnt out and they're fat and lazy and on the couch again, right? So when I started to look at that and let me take a step back from that. So when I was younger, my brother's married. I have a sister-in-law and I have a niece and nephew. And when I was probably 16, around when my nephew was born, she made a comment to me that was like, well, when you have kids, you'll understand you won't be able to do all this bodybuilding crap anymore. And it was like, it's been one of those things that I've just kind of held on to like, okay, cool. So now I'm getting to prove that, but that kind of thing always stuck with me. And it's like, I'm not going to be the I once was guy. I'm not going to be the, well, when I was your age, I did this. And it's like, no, if this is what I love, this is what I enjoy, then I'm going to find everything that I can do to continue to do it until I physically cannot move and cannot get into the gym. So with that in mind, and that's the mentality that I want to have, that's the mentality I want to take to my clients, regardless of whether they're a first-time lifter or they've been doing it for 10 years or whatever. I want to show them how to make it sustainable. I want them to be able to train as hard as they possibly can without injury and making their life better, So like, I don't want them to just come in and like we train for a few months and they're gone. If we just train together for a few months, that's fine. But I want you to be able to take what I teach you and make it last the rest of your life. So that's always my goal whenever I work with people is communicating all these different things to them of like why we do this, why this exercise is important, why these warm-ups are important, why this stability exercise is important, why the program execution is important, why like all these things fit together, why the nutrition should be done this way, how you can make that nutrition sustainable, how you can manage going out to eat and living a normal life and things like that. So it's all a matter of like modulating what it looks like for that person. So my competitors who want to go really far in the sport, how do I make it so that you can train the way you need to train and do it for as long as you need to do it, right? My people who just want to make it a lifestyle change, how do I show you how to make these things a sustainable habit that you can do for the rest of your life? If it's something that you can only do for a few months, then you burn out, and then you take 6 months off and you do another 3 months and back and forth, you're just going to be like digging the same hole over and over and filling it back up with the same amount of dirt. It's going to get boring. It's going to get annoying at some time. And eventually you're probably just going to stop. So I try to educate and teach my people as best as I can and to their level and to their ability, to show them why these things are important and why we don't just come in to like smash some heavy weight and leave. It's like, yeah, obviously we want to smash some heavy weight, but if we do that wrong, you're going to do it for a very short period of time, or you'll just be in a shitload of pain. So I want to be able to do it for a long time. So the better I can teach myself to do it for a long time, the better I can show my clients how to do it for a long time. So that's kind of where that came from. And like through that, like making fitness last a lifetime is where the long haul came from. The name popped in my head, and then the idea was either like an 18-wheeler or a train, because both of those things tend to go pretty long distances, right? And that's where I ended up with the train, which I think is pretty dope. But yeah, so that's where the name came from, the slogan, all that stuff, and what the philosophy that I apply to my clients is.
So what's the kind of the long, no pun intended, but what's like the long haul vision or goal? Do you eventually want to like have your own training studio or your own gym, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I told my parents when I would first switch over to kinesiology that I eventually wanted to own a gym, but like the reality of owning a gym is that it's not really lucrative. You're not really gonna make a lot of money owning a gym. So as far as owning a gym, that's more of like a side passion project where it's like if I decide to open one, it's either going to be a private facility or it's going to be like one where I don't have to worry about it losing money, right? So I'm going to make my money elsewhere, and then the gym is like a passion project. So yeah, it'd be cool to have a gym someday, but the ultimate goal is just to continue to make myself better so that I can pass on information, maybe kind of go down the education route, looking more into like doing more YouTube content, things like that, where I don't necessarily have to train people in person anymore. The online coaching is definitely the direction I want to go because I want to be able to do my job anywhere at any time, and not have to be stuck to a location at all times. So definitely want to expand the online coaching and make the bulk of my people that I work with competitors or people who want to become a competitor. Yeah, just kind of moving down that direction. And starting next week, we'll be getting some more content coming out for the YouTube and doing some day in the life type stuff for the prep. So it'll be a lot of fun and just kind of continuing to expand that from there and kind of use the YouTube as a springboard for other things down the road.
Love it, man. I just kind of generally want to touch on the training and the nutrition. I don't really want to get into the weeds of all that, but all of us kind of have our own ideas, our own thoughts, our own philosophies. You mentioned Chris Tuttle earlier, helping you in terms of your nutrition. He's definitely one of those guys that, first of all, he's educated, but he's also got the experience and is just so knowledgeable. So I'm sure you've gained some important insights from him. But just overall, I know you mentioned earlier progressive overload, but just kind of generally speaking for your own training and then clients, obviously I know there's individuality within all of that, right? But again, the umbrella, what does the nutrition kind of look like? And then what does the training look like for you? And then what do you kind of like to educate your clients on in regards to the training nutrition?
Yeah, so nutrition is pretty simple, to be honest, because there's only so many foods we can choose from. I don't have any magic foods that I can give to people. Everybody pretty much gets the same food. It's just a matter of like, how does your body respond to the food that I give you? And then what adjustments do we need to make from there? So like, people always want to complain about, oh, well, this coach gave me a cookie cutter diet. It's like, okay, but how long did you work with them? How much did you check in? How hard did you stick to that program? Right? Because like, if you look at things that I give to my clients, like when they start, it's really basic, but through their check-ins, through like over time, that nutrition now starts to become more tailored. Okay. Your pictures looked this way. So let's try this with the carbs and the protein and fast to see if we can change that result. Like there's all these different things and there's different sources we can pick from depending on what somebody likes and things like that. But like at the end of the day, it's a matter of hitting your protein, getting the right amount of carbs to fuel whether you're putting on muscle or cutting body fat, and then the right amount of healthy fats to keep a good healthy hormone profile. And it's just a matter of modulating, like how big is this person? Are they male or female? How often are we training? And then it also depends more or less on like, what is that person going to adhere to? Right. So I have people that have a full blown meal plan. That's like everything is listed out by the gram. And then I have people where it's like, hey, I want you to hit X number of protein a day, and I want you to have 2 servings of vegetables and 2 servings of fruit, like we talked about earlier. And that's the long and short of it. It's like, hey, cut out the processed stuff. So anything that comes in a package, let's stop eating that. Let's cut out any soda or sugar that you're getting in regularly. Hit your protein, get your veggies, get your fruits, and then everything else kind of falls in place from there. So it's all a matter of like coming to the person where they're at and then providing them what will work best for them where they're at, right? And then as far as training, ideally for most people, I'm going to work with more of a low to moderate volume approach that's going to be focused on progressive overload. So we're going to stick to the same program for X number of time, meaning we're going to stick to the same exercises, the same order, the same rep sets, the same sets and reps and structure and everything. Like all that's going to stay the same for X period of time so that we can milk as much out of that exercise as possible, right? And then again, the amount of volume that we need is going to change. So like, are we making changes with what we have currently? No. Okay. Do I need to add more? Do I need to change frequency? Do I need to have more reps, more sets, like more exercises? So like everything kind of expands as the program goes along. So the three main styles of training that I go with, it's all based on like how often they can come to the gym and then what their goal is as far as training. So like I have some people who only come in twice a week and only come in when they see me. So if that's the case, I'm not going to have them come in and train chest and then arms, like that's not going to work, right? We're not going to see any results. Maybe that's what they would like to do because it's easy or fun or whatever you want to call it, but that's not what's going to get us results. So those people will get a full body program, right? So the first full body day will mostly be upper body, and then we'll have a little bit lower. The second upper body day will be mostly lower and finished with a little bit of upper. So it's a great thing for beginners or somebody just learning or somebody who doesn't have a lot of time. It's a great place to start. I also like an upper lower split. So like one day we hit upper body, the next day we hit lower, we take a rest, and then we do a B variation of upper and lower. And then the most ideal, how I train myself, how I train my more serious clients, the people who have the capacity to output the way I need them to output, and train the way I need them to train, push-pull legs, or some kind of modification of push-pull legs is typically the way that I go for those people. Because with push-pull legs, we can keep, honestly, with any of those styles, so the full body, the upper lower, or the push-pull, the big advantages to those is that we can keep frequency high. And I think frequency is ultimately one of the biggest drivers of hypertrophy, right? So if we can hit that muscle every few days versus once every 7, that stimulus is going to be higher and your body is going to respond better. So it's all a matter of like figuring out what the person is capable of doing, what their skill level is, what their goal is, and then how new or experienced they may be in the gym, to build their program from there. With my new people, I'll tend to stick to like a regular 3 by 12 to 15, 3 by 10 to 12. With my more advanced people, it can come down to like, depending on what the exercise is, it can come down to 1 set. Right. So, like that's not including warm-up sets. We're talking working sets there. But like, for example, on a leg day, if we've really, really been pushing and fatigue is really high, and I know this client can output a ton when we do this exercise, if we get them on a hack squat, maybe if I do 2 sets, or if I program in 2 sets, maybe it's going to be too much. Maybe it's something that he's not going to be able to recover from because he can output so much, right? So it's all a matter of like, everybody is different. So like, what kind of effort are they giving me? What do their exercises look like? Do they need more time doing that exercise so that they can build the connection to that exercise, to that muscle X, Y, and Z? Or are they already kind of at the level where like, if I ask you to do 1 set, you can make that 1 set be the hardest thing you've ever done. So it's just a matter of like what their experience level is, and what they are capable of doing, really.
Excellent. All right, so we're gonna start wrapping things up here. I wanna ask you about just the environment there at Destination Dallas. Obviously watching the YouTube, and I'm seeing all kinds of the top IFBB pros with content coming out of there, and just knowing the company GASP and Better Bodies. What's the environment like there, and just how has being at Destination Dallas just helped you be a better trainer, a better human, and just kind of touch on how much that's really impacted your life?
Well, I mean, to start off with, every gym is going to have its like people that you don't get along with, right? Every gym is going to have that. Anywhere you go in life, there's going to be people that you don't want to deal with. So we have our regular gym drama, like every gym does. You have the same people around each other on a regular basis that maybe don't do well around each other. People are going to get pissed off. There's going to be people that get attitudes X, Y, and Z. But for 99% of the time, that gym is the best environment on the planet, right? That 1% that gets focused on sometimes it gets expanded to be this massive thing, and it's just not that. Destination is all about pushing yourself. If you were to ever speak to MJ, the owner of GASP, it's like, regardless of what your level is, come in here and bust your ass. Like, whatever it is you're trying to do, come work, and don't make excuses. Don't have any compromise. Like, these are things that, like, anybody who watches GASP or like any of the athletes or anything like that, you'll hear them all speak about relentless, no compromise, no excuses. And that's all coming from MJ. And that feeds into the gym as well. So like, he does not let, like, people who aren't there to push themselves aren't going to last. It's just kind of how the gym ends up going. They get weeded out because they're not able to keep up to the standard of the people that are around. So as far as like the environment, I've never been in a more conducive environment for me to be able to push myself in a prep or push myself as far as training. And as far as like what I've learned, I've learned so much from so many different people already that, like, I get to bump heads with Hunter Lobrato on a regular basis, Branch Warren, Johnny Jackson, Martin Fitzwater. Like, there's all these people who come through on such a regular basis that have this wide array of knowledge that it's like, there's so much to pick from. There's so many different opportunities. There's so many different things that I can learn from. That's not necessarily how I view training or how I view nutrition, but it could potentially be an insight into something, right? That I could learn from, I could pick from. So while not everyone up there is going to be someone that I'm going to take tons and tons of information from, I can learn from just about anybody up there at the gym. And then it's always a very motivating place where, like, people come up to you like, oh man, you're looking really good, this and that. Like, keep pushing. Like, the people who go in there, for the most part, like, there's a lot of competitors in there. So like, they understand what you're going through. They can see what you're going through, and they're there to encourage you and move you along. So like, it's just one of the best gyms I've ever been to, man. Not necessarily because the equipment is the best on the planet or because it's in the best location ever, or whatever you want to say about your gym. It's just the people that are there. It's a family. For the most part, like, we all get along. We all support each other. We're all sharing each other's stuff. We're all like helping each other out as best we can. So it's a very supportive environment. But at the same time, you have to work. Nothing is handed to anyone there. There are opportunities at every corner in that gym because MJ wants everyone to succeed and wants to see everyone elevate. So if you are willing to take the chances and not just sit back and wait for something to come to you, there are opportunities everywhere there. So, destination is just like, it's home. It's the best way to describe it. It's home.
So, one more thing here, I want to touch on, and then I want to ask you about being a dad, and then we'll finish it up here. But mindset, right? We hear it all the time. Mindset is everything, especially within bodybuilding. It's really all about your mindset and having a that relentless mindset. But for you, has there been a shift, Nick, from moving from North Carolina to Texas and now being at Destination Dallas? You feel like there has been a shift in your mindset? And if so, what does your mindset currently look like? And then how do you kind of try to encourage your clients to adopt that mindset or think about, the importance of having that mindset to get the results that they want?
Yeah, 100%. My mindset has changed. I've always had the mentality of like wanting to push maybe not always, but since I started competing, I've always had that mindset of like wanting to push myself and wanting to be better and things like that. But by having an outside view of these athletes and what they do and what they do to get to what they achieve, it's different than being there, right? So like you can go on Instagram, you can go on YouTube, you can watch your favorite athlete, you can see them push themselves, you can see them grind, you can see them struggle, you can see this and that. And it's like, okay, I got a pretty good perspective here. But there's something different when you see it in person, man. It's palpable, right? It's literally something that you can feel. Marley, if you wake that baby up, it's palpable. You walk into that room and those athletes are in the area, and you can feel it. So it's when you're in that kind of environment and you've got those kind of people around, it's, for me anyways, it's impossible not to hold myself to a higher standard. So it's not that my mindset has changed that much. It's just a matter of my output has changed. So what I am putting into my training, what I'm putting into my nutrition, what I'm putting into each cardio session, what I'm putting into clients, what I'm putting into the business, what I'm putting into my, like, everything, right? It's all having to be elevated because there's a standard set before me, right? So not that anyone at GASP for Destination is like, oh, if you're not shredded, we hate you, right? Like, but when I speak to these athletes on a regular basis who are some of the best on the planet and they are now my friends, to me, I put an expectation on myself of like, I want that person to be proud of me, right? I want that person to be able to say, dude, you did something here. You pushed yourself and we see it. So it's that acknowledgement from that outside source to basically just confirm that, like, hey, you're doing something right. You're pushing yourself, you're testing yourself, and you're going somewhere where most people won't. I think that's the big allure to bodybuilding for me, where it's like I get pleasure out of like going to a place where other people haven't gone or aren't willing to go, or the strong majority of people aren't willing to go. There's a sick sadistic like side to that where it's like, let's see how far I can push myself into this, and then as far as like getting that across to clients, I think the only way that like I can really do that is to show them. I can sit here and tell people all day, like, this is what's required. This is what you have to do. This is how you have to push yourself. This is where your mind should be, this and that. But usually, unless that person is actively seeking that and actively trying to change their mentality and actively change their actions and things like that, me just speaking to them and saying like, you got to do this, this, and this, it's just not going to come across, right? So my biggest thing is just showing. So like, that's how I use my social media, is like, hey, this is my training. This is what I'm doing with the nutrition. This is what like X, Y, and Z. Like, so I'm just trying to lead from the front, show the people that if I'm going to tell you to do something, I've already done it myself.
So what, you've mentioned your son. What is being a dad, fatherhood? What has that taught you? And just kind of what does having that responsibility mean to you, Nick?
It's changed a lot of things, man. Being a dad was it was unexpected, but it's been one of the best things that's like ever happened to me. He helps, him and his mom both help keep me grounded. They keep me from being an idiot. And it's just like kind of that extra drive, I've got some people at home that count on me and that I want to do well for, so that we can have a better life. And my biggest thing, especially with the way the world is these days, I've said since day one, I will not allow my son to be a piece of shit. And I think a big part of that is showing him what that means to not be a piece of shit. And the way my dad taught me hard work was just working hard, right? We never sat down and had a conversation about, well, you have to work hard, you have to do this, you have to do that. It was more of just like, we have this life because of what my dad has done, right? It was just kind of a known, right? So again, just like I do with my clients, I'm trying to lead from the front for my son, trying to make myself a better person so that he can be a better person, right? Because the better I can make myself, the better he can see that. the better he will end up being in the long run, because they mimic us. They want to be like us. I want to be like my dad. I've learned a lot from my dad, and my dad's a great man. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be like your dad, or like your mom, or whoever it is that you want to look up to. So the biggest thing there is just like showing him that I'm trying to work for us. I mean, he's 8 months old right now, so he doesn't know what the hell's going on, right? He's just figuring out how to crawl around. So he doesn't know that daddy's going to work and training these clients and doing his bodybuilding thing. But he will, and at some point when he can start to remember these things, he's like, oh, dad's always been doing this. Dad's always been pushing himself. Dad's always been doing the X, Y, and Z. And it's like, if I want what dad has, I have to do that too, right? And just another part of like him not being a shitty person is just teaching him how to be respectful of other people, be understanding of other people's situations. We're not all of us, but like the world has become so dogmatic in thinking, and everything's become dogmatic. Everything has to have a side. You have to choose this side. If you're not on this side, you're on that side. And it's like, why does it have to be that way? Why can't we have this fluid aspect where like everyone can make their own decisions? And if you want to diet this way, by all means, if it works for you, then freaking do it. Like if it makes you happy, do it. Who gives a shit whether or not someone on the internet says that it's the best thing or not? Does it work for you? Great. That's all that matters. So just a matter of like, I want to teach him to just be respectful of others and their upbringing, and be himself without inhibiting other people. You know what I'm saying? Not taking away from others in the pursuit of being himself.
Excellent, man. All right. So, Nick, we've had what I would call a very thorough conversation. We've covered a lot of information, a lot of content, all the bases from my perspective. So if there's anything else that you kind of want to share, any final thoughts, any final words, this is kind of the time that I'd love to have you share that with the listeners. And then before I do the outro, please share where people can reach out to you, people can follow along with the content you're producing, and any sponsors, anything like that, please go ahead and mention those at this time as well.
Yep. So, I mean, the last thing that I can say before, I don't have anything super crazy. We've touched on a lot during this, but just go after what you enjoy. Find the thing that you really, really like and lean hard into it. It may not be the quickest route to success and money and things like that, but if it's something you enjoy, it's something that you're going to pour your heart into. If you're going to pour your heart into it, at some point, it's going to become a thing, right? And whether or not that thing looks the way you exactly imagined it, it doesn't matter. Like, never in a million years when I moved to Texas would I be assuming that I would be in the place that I am around the people who I am around, right? So don't be afraid to take that step, even if you don't know what it's going to look like in the long run. If you make a decision and you feel at ease with it, you feel comfortable with it, you're like, this is what I have to do. Pursue it with everything that you have. Don't be afraid of the what if, or like, do I need to have more money for this, or do I need to do that? And it's like, just do it. Just take that first step, and then that second step, and third, and so on. And next thing you know, you're 10 miles down the road, right? So just go after that thing that you enjoy. Find something that sets your heart on fire, and find a way to monetize it. Because if you can do that, then you'll never have to work, so monetize something that you enjoy. As far as just sponsors, Labrada Pro Series is who I'm sponsored by for supplements. Some of the, I hate to say this kind of stuff because everybody expects an athlete to say good things about the products that they work with, but they legitimately have changed my training. So the Intra especially has changed my recovery and endurance capacity during training because of the ingredients that are put in there. So like, these products are superior. They're very, very good. So like, I can 100% stand by these products. Anyone who knows me well knows that I'm not going to put my name behind something that just because they want to give me stuff, or they want to give me money, or X, Y, and Z. It's like, I want to represent things that I actually use and actually enjoy. So when I put my name behind a company like the Labrada Pro Series, I mean it because they're great, right? Um, and then GASP and Better Bodies, I'm not an athlete for them, but I work very closely with the company. It's like all I wear is GASP, and I've got the shorts on too. So I mean, you can always check out their stuff. I think they have a Memorial Day sale going on tomorrow, so you can get a pretty solid discount on some products there. Destination is the gym that I train out of. Other than that, my Instagram is Nick_Bagley_, and then I also have the long haul fitness Instagram, which is long_haul_fitness. I do a lot more on the Nick Bagley channel than I do on the long haul. It's just kind of a placeholder for the business, and I'll put some transformations and things up there. So some of my work is on there, but most of my personal stuff and how I talk about training and training philosophies and nutrition stuff and all that is on my personal Instagram. So that's where you can get a little bit better idea of who I am. Like I mentioned in the beginning, starting on Tuesday next week, 2 days, I'm going to be doing some filming for my YouTube. So the Long Haul Fitness on YouTube is currently it's up and it's all podcasts. So I have some podcasts with Chris Tuttle, John Jewett, Jerry Ward, a bunch of local people and friends, Liv Roth. So I've interviewed some friends and some really good interviews up there, which I want to get back into at some point. But going to follow along with the prep series for the next 13 weeks and put out the training and nutrition and things like that. So I can kind of dive a little bit more into what I do on a regular basis for this stuff. So I'll be looking for some content on there soon.
Very good. Now, in regards to the supplements and stuff like that, the Labrada Pro Series, do you have like a discount code if somebody does want to check things out and support you? Why don't you give that out?
Yeah, so the discount code for the Labrada Pro Series is Bagley10, and it'll get you 10% off. They sell there's only 3 products in the line right now with the Pro Series. There's a pump, an intra, and then a hydro. So it's a hydrolyzed whey. And you can get all 3 of them in this sweet like shoe box that comes with the shirt and everything. You get 10% off that with Bagley10.
Okay, and then why don't you go ahead and just spell your last name for the listeners, Nick?
Bagley. It's Bagley. Bagley.
All right. Awesome, man. So Nick, I just want to thank you so very much for taking some time out of your afternoon just to jump on the podcast, share your story.
Of course.
Just give myself and the listeners just a little bit of insight and information in terms of bodybuilding and training. I just really greatly appreciate you jumping on and sharing your story. Yeah,
man. I appreciate you having me. It's been a good time.
For sure. And for any of you listeners out there that, want to reach out to Nick or anything like that, I just, most of my guests I bring on the podcast, I've never met them. I just reach out to most of them through Instagram. So I sent Nick just a random DM and he got back to me really quickly. So if you guys are thinking about, reaching out to Nick, if you really connected with his story and some of the stuff that he was talking about, don't hesitate to send Nick a DM on Instagram, and I'm pretty confident he'll get back to you quickly. So 127 Fit podcast listeners, once again, thank you so very much for your listening ears. They're always greatly appreciated. If you guys would like to find out more about the guests that I'm bringing onto the podcast, or if you would like to find out more about myself personally, you can find all of that information on Instagram at 127fit. Facebook is Quentin Vars. If you guys would do me a huge favor and please leave a 5-star written review for the podcast, especially within the iTunes Apple Podcast app. That would be so cool. That's how the podcast is found. That's how more people are positively impacted through the stories that my guests are sharing on the podcast. And as you have found great value in Nick's episode or a previous episode of the 127 Fit podcast, I would also just ask you to take that individual episode or episodes and share it on all of your social media story platforms. And if you think you would be a great guest, or if you have a friend or an acquaintance you think would be a great guest or guest for the 127 Fit podcast, please just send me an email. And that email is 127fit@gmail.com. And then per the usual, I will leave you guys with Proverbs 24:10, which states, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. This time, until next time, I'll catch you guys later.